Well, hello there, everyone. It's Melissa, and here is a re-recording of the Formative Assessment Year of Google session that kind of botched the hangout on that. We didn't end up getting it recorded, but it's okay because I can come back and record it again. So here we go. First of all, I'll start out with a little bit of formative assessment humor here, which I think is funny. We all have to find a little bit of humor in our daily routine. So, and I'm not going to go through each one of these tools, in real detail. I think, for the most part, any of the tools that I'm talking about here are going to allow you to incorporate stuff that you already have, stuff you've already created in various formats, to use as the basis for these formative assessment activities. A lot of the tools that I'm going to show you are going to allow you to use Google accounts in order to create teacher accounts. So again, you're not having to make up a whole nother username and password to remember. So a lot of them will allow for that seamless login using your Google account. So that's nice. I think, though, as far as evaluating which tools to use, and I'm going to just kind of touch on a few of them. There are all kinds of these tools out there to use. I think what's really going to drive what makes most sense for you to use is your method of instruction, knowing what access to technology that you do have. Some people have ready access to carts with laptop computers in them. At the elementary schools, it may involve using the students with iPads. It just depends. And that's going to really drive what works best for you. I don't think we're really necessarily endorsing any particular thing. But just want to start kind of opening up some doors for you to start exploring some tools. Last spring, when I was at the first Google Summit that was in Franklin, which was a really amazing experience, I attended a session with a guy, and he presented a session on formative assessment. And this is, I totally pimped his infographic here. He's already done a nice head-to-head talking about some of the major players, I think, in the formative assessment world. And again, this was last spring. You know how technology moves pretty quickly and things change. But all of these are still very viable options. And in the following slides, I've created some links to each one of these other than the Plickers, because this is kind of a no-tech option, but some links out to those tools so that you can take a further look at them. So again, I have given John his credit. He created this. I can't take credit for that at all. But just to give you kind of this breakdown on how it works, or some of the features. Google Forms, Socrative, Nearpod, Pear Deck, those are going to be your online. They require some kind of student technology, whether they're sitting at a laptop or using a device, maybe their own personal phone in a BYOD environment. And then Plickers is neat because there's actually really minimal tech requirements whatsoever. You're going to you basically print QR cards. And when you ask questions, then the students hold up the card, and you as the teacher with your iPad can pick up all the QR codes from which direction the student is holding the card. It's kind of cool. It's low tech, but it's still the same method of the collection of data on your students in real time, which is pretty cool. So some of the tools explained, and I'll go through, this is the Cliff's Notes version of these. Like I said, I'm not going to dive real deep into any, one of these in particular. But so here's some of the tools explained. And on this slide deck that I have shared with everyone in the Year of Google shared folder. So if you go into Drive and go in the Shared with Me, that folder should be there. And all of these slide presentations are in there, and these ones that are the green and have the underline are a hyperlink out to that specific tools website. Pear Deck is probably has some of the coolest options for students in terms of the way that they can respond to questions. And what is also nice is that the decks that you create, those are your question sets. The decks are automatically saved in Google Drive if you log in to Pear Deck using your Google account. So that makes it really nice that you're not having to wonder, where did that deck save? You know, is it compatible? Can I use it in Drive, etc.? It's all kind of right there. This one I am going to punch out too, because their page loads pretty quickly, which is kind of nice. And I'm going to go to Pear Deck. And this is kind of an example. The Socrative, Nearpod, a lot of these work in a very similar fashion. You can have students individually log in with Google accounts, but I think the most efficient way to do it is just create a teacher account. And I've already used my Google account, so when I log in here, it's just going to pass me right through. So this is what it would look like to me as the teacher. I've created a quick deck that I did on Indiana Trivia. If you want to open decks you've created recently, or you want to create a new one, you do have some limitations in Pear Deck with the free account. You can upgrade to premium to get all of the super groovy bells and whistles that go along with this. But at least for some initial exploration, use the basics, take a look at the tools that are there. So I've created this deck, and I can continue, you know, I've created it, I can work on it. It creates, when you create your deck, it will generate a code that the students will use to join in. So if I select this guy and say start presenting, oh, I guess I had one in progress that I didn't. Let's go to it and see if it'll let me. I may have already started it just to test it. Okay, here we go. So with your Double Secret Premium account, you can get a session dashboard view that will allow you to actually monitor incoming responses along the sides. Your students and their answers will display here. However, the basic account will allow the teacher to open what's called the projector view. Now, if you have your kiddos on a laptop or a device of some kind, they can just go to this website here, peardeck.com/join. And all they have to do then is enter this student code. They're prompted for that. And so then when you start showing the projector view, so this is, again, this would prompt the students. This is the site you go to. This is the code that you enter. Once the students have joined, let me see if it'll let me, since I don't have any kids that have joined the session, if it'll let me start it. Here we go. So this is just a check for understanding. And then the kids would see this on their screen, see what the answer choices are. So what was the first Indiana state capital? The kids would see their choices. Who's the current governor? They respond, and then you'd be able to see what's going on your screen. So it's a real simple, just delivery, ask questions, gather responses, instead of, you know, sitting there with the, you know, the crickets chirping and you're wondering if the kids actually understand the content, or that they're, you know, they're recalling the answers to the questions based on discussion or whatever. You can quickly kind of survey and get real actual data that you can use to help you decide, do we need to work more on these topics, or we're good with this and we can move on. So that's just an example. I'll go ahead and end the session here. And I'll save without naming. But so this is a very simple tool that can be used. Pear Deck, it was developed by some, I think, IU guys, or they're Indiana people. So it's nice to support local developers. I've gone ahead and included here Nearpod and Socrative links. The cool thing, Nearpod does have a nice sharing library, and you can download lessons that are ready to go. Some are free. The ones that are created by the Nearpod content partners generally are free. Teachers that choose to share for no cost will put out free lessons, but some of them do require you know, $1.99 or, you know, $2.99 to, you know, to download the lesson. And then those can be, delivered in a similar method as Pear Deck. Socrative, teachers at the high school can actually access Socrative using their Mastery Connect login. Mastery Connect, they have those bubble sheet assessments that are part of that program. Well, Socrative will allow you to kind of tweak tweak those, the bubble sheet assignments that you have in Mastery Connect. You do a little bit of reswizzling and reformatting to those, and they will import into Socrative, and that way then you can do this in a digital context. So that's kind of nice if you're a high school teacher already using Mastery Connect. A really popular option, and of course, being at the Google Summit last spring, this was, something that everybody's talking about in terms of what's free to use. There's no premium/freemium element to using Google Forms with Flubaroo. And where I think there has been previously some confusion using these tools is that somehow the form, and I think in previous versions of the form, you could define what the correct answers were in the form. Well, now Google has squizzled and kind of tweaked and modified and evolved Google Forms. Google Forms are going to allow you to actually create the questions, the sequence, the options for what type of question that it is. But then you're going to use, when you send out the form, you want to make sure that in the form that you, in the settings, say, I want it to create a Google sheet, a spreadsheet that contains all of the collected responses. Then in the sheet, you're going to use the add-on called Flubaroo to create. You're going to actually take your own assessment, create the answer key, and then use Flubaroo in the sheet to grade those responses. So that doesn't actually, defining the correct answers doesn't happen in the Google Forms. It happens when you collect the responses in sheets and then use the Flubaroo add-in to grade those. In the original broadcast of this session for Year of Google, I did go through a tutorial on using forms and Flubaroo. What I ended up doing for the sake of this re-recording was to just include a link to that video tutorial. I did it as an impromptu hangout on air so that I could record the session, and the link to that is here. It is also, I've got in that Year of Google shared folder, there is a Google Doc that has all of the hyperlinks to all of the recordings of the Year of Google sessions. So, but one of them being specifically focused on, I think it's about 6 minutes long, so it won't take up, the entire afternoon, but it takes you through the flow of using forms and Flubaroo for a formative assessment. Other tools that I thought were worth mentioning, and just because this one's just fun, Kahoot is a great way that you can use. It's kind of like trivia. You can set up so that it's a challenge game and the kids compete against each other on a timer to answer questions, and then you'll be able to see specifically the kids use, again, a code to log in, and they enter their name. So they could put in their real name. They could put in a funny alter ego, like if they wanted to be Superman or the Flash, or they wanted to be the Beebs, whatever. They can log in, and then when using the code, and as the kids answer the question, and usually they're like 3 or 4 part multiple choice, the kids just click on the answer of their choice, and then you get that distribution of how many kids said A, B, C, and D, and it will prompt them who's got the right answer. It's really fun. The kids are engaged. They get excited about it. It's a fun tool. But I mean, really, you're still collecting real live data. It doesn't have to be trivia questions about, it can be real questions, and getting, gauging students' understanding of concepts. So that's a fun tool to use. There is a link here to Kahoot. It's free. It's a lot of fun. You can create your own Kahoots. There are other Kahoots that teachers have created and uploaded for sharing too. So there's a lot of cool stuff to look at. Right now, middle school and high school teachers that are using Canvas, don't forget you can use quizzes from the course navigation. So in your course, create a quiz and you can create what's called a graded survey. And you can use that tactic for formative assessment as well. And again, then those, that's all housed within your Canvas environment. Thinking outside the box. I know that as far as the different, I think Padlet we talked about a little bit in the curating content year of Google session, and Padlet is a great, I think, utility tool. It's a great curation of content tool. I also think it can be used for formative assessment, kind of thinking outside the box, and not really formative assessment per se, but I think using Kahoot is a cool twist on the parking lot concept, where you'd ask your kids, here, write down the things that you have questions on that we want to cover before our unit quiz or our unit final or whatever. Then students can put their questions up on the Kahoot or up on the Padlet, and then you as the teacher could post something on that Padlet that answers that question, or you could even encourage classmates to help each other out as far as peer mentoring, peer assisting. Here's an example. And hopefully this will load before I collect Social Security. Here we go. So here's my Padlet that I created. Okay, I spoke too soon. It's at least loading. This is good. We like that. Okay. So I created a Padlet and put up here, so the instructions: use this Padlet to post questions that you have before our unit test so that I know what you need help with. Write your name in the title space and use the write something space to post your question. Okay, so student here, Rhoda, posted, this is our unit on Impressionist artists. Where was the Studio of the South? Rhoda's classmate, Mary Richards, said, hi, Rhoda, I think this link might help answer your question. And so the student did her peer a solid here and provided a helpful link so that Rhoda could learn more about the Studio of the South. Another classmate, Velma, had actually posted something here on the Padlet about this image. Is this Monet or Van Gogh? And so then here's my Mrs. Harris reply, said, Velma, that painting is actually Monet. It's the water lilies. You may have been thinking of the Van Gogh irises. Oops, something is not right. Well, that's no surprise. Something's always not right somewhere. But what I like about using the Padlet, it's not just questions. It's if I double click on here to create a new one. So here might be my title, where as the instructions go, I'll put my name, and then in the write something, I'm going to I'll post something here, and there may be a question about, why do you think Van Gogh cut off his ear? And then I could either insert some kind of a audio recording, video. I can just add some kind of attachment, picture or document that might help better explain or elaborate on or promote discussion. So I think that's just kind of a cool way to use Padlet in terms of gathering information to help you decide what direction your instruction needs to go. Alrighty, and then last but certainly not least, there's always more to explore. I created or included here a link to 50 digital formative assessment tools and apps. And I'll punch out, this is from the NWEA. So this isn't just me trying to pick what I think is cool. This is actually a link from a reputable, credible source. And some of the ones that we talked about here, the ones that we mentioned, are in this list. But this is actually very, very recent, 19th of February. And there's a whole list of additional ones that you can use. I think there's something for everyone. It depends on, again, the different tools that you may already be using and what seems to make sense. So there's a lot here, and there's a lot for you to look at. All right. So I hope that this has been helpful, planting some seeds, giving you a little bit of a taste of what's out there and how you might want to expand what you're already doing in terms of formative assessment in your classroom today. As always, these webinar recordings are available in the Year of Shared Google folder on the document, and all of the slide decks are there too. And if you ever have questions about this stuff, just ask. Thanks, guys. Have a great day.